Good morning, everyone. I'm Kevin Allen, and I'm joined by my usual broadcast partner, former NHL defenseman Tom Laidlaw, who played 11 seasons for the New York Rangers and Los Angeles Kings. This is the Laidlaw and Allen Report. Come to you twice a week to talk all things hockey and cooking and lots of other things as well. And today, Tom, we're going to start the show talking about someplace you love. I'm up in northern Michigan, not the UP, but I am up in northern Cadillac area. My daughter and her husband have a winter home up here that they go skiing and such. Nice. I just saw my 3-year-old grandson ski yesterday. That was fun.
Oh, nice. Where's Cadillac then? What's that close to? I should know.
It's probably an hour from Traverse City, maybe.
Nice.
Some in that area. So
nice. Home of Dallas Drake, right there, Traverse City.
Yeah. So, they just got my daughter married into a family of skiers, and they have what they call their compound up here. And he has 2 brothers, and they own places, and the dad and mom own a place, and so they finally got their place up here. And it's just beautiful. It snowed 3 inches last night, and the big thing is. And I had that by my lake house as well. The trees in the area are now mature to the point where they're starting to go down. And every time we drive up to the lake house, my wife and I, are wondering, okay, what tree's gone down? And the trees in my lake house area are 150 feet tall. They're huge trees. And my neighbor lost his garage 2 years ago, we constantly have trees that are going down. My neighbor's taking down 12 of his trees. How much do you think it costs to remove 12 trees in a rural area?
I'm going to say $10,000.
Yeah, 15 is what it is.
Oh, wow.
Now, it's usually a lot cheaper when you're out. Like if you had trees taken down, like where I live, my normal home in the Ann Arbor area, they want a lot of money. We had one tree that we wanted taken down, and the estimates were $2,000 for one tree. But up in the rural area where, there's more of that to deal with, it's a little better deal, but still, that's a significant amount of money.
We're going to Home Depot, buy a chainsaw, and start our own business. Right?
Yeah, well, that's for sure. Well, anyway, my son-in-law's father last night, on a volunteer basis, one of the things that he and his buddies do that live up here, they get out their chainsaws and they go on the snowmobile trails, and where trees have fallen, they cut them up and get them out of the way so the boys can roar through on their snowmobiles.
I like that. That's good.
And, the Forest Service don't have the manpower to do that, so they take it upon themselves. They just organize among themselves and get it all done. And he was saying last night, I was talking to him, he was saying that the biggest problem is that you get your chainsaw stuck in one of those big trees, and then 2 other guys got to get their chainsaws and sort of dig your chainsaw out.
There's a whole strategy to cutting down a tree too. You got to have a little notch in there, so the direction you want.
Oh yeah. Well, these guys all know what they're doing. They've been, the father, my son-in-law's father, he's been coming up here for 40 some years. So
that's a beautiful, beautiful part of the country too. I don't think people realize how all the lakes and everything. Like they talk about Minnesota being the land of 10,000 lakes, which it is, but Michigan's got some beautiful lakes too.
Man, when it comes up on my wireless, I'm in the middle essentially of a national forest, the Manistee National Forest. So that's what it comes up. I was recording someone on an interview, and my cell phone said for my location was Manistee Forest.
I don't know if I've ever asked you this. Have you ever? Did you ever interview Larry Melnick?
No, I don't recall that he did.
But you'd remember it if you did. It would be something that you remember it. It's a memorable.
Well, I might have in a post game, you don't. I did a lot of interviews in my 30 some years at USA Today in a post game setting where there's 6 or 7 of you. You were gathered around a guy, and the game has just happened, and if he did something in the game, you're just part of all that group. But I don't remember specifically, that happened. So, but he certainly has come up. He came up in the Bernie Nichols book.
That's right.
Yeah, so we talked to him about that, and of course he's on your show, and he's a regular. And
we'll get him on the show with you and I. It'd be real experience for you. Although I don't know, I think you're strong enough to handle it. You could do it.
Okay. All right. Yeah. Anyway, let's talk a little bit of hockey here before we get into your cooking. Did you see my wife liked one of your cooking?
I missed that. Which
Yeah,
one?
I don't know. She put a like on one thing, and I said you should tell Tom that you did review his film, and she goes, he'll know because I liked it. So,
guys,
so,
see, I think I've gotten like, okay, all right.
Yeah.
I'll have to go back and check. I hope it was like the turkey soup that I made, homemade.
I think it was. Did you make some turkey soup?
Yes, last Sunday.
Might have been that one. Okay. My wife's a big soup maker, so
yeah,
she just made. This is my wife. I'm getting into cooking too quickly here, but I'll tell this story anyway. My wife looked in her vegetable pantry.
Yes,
and she had, what was it? A parsnip, like a turnip. I mean, she had just an odd collection of vegetables.
Right.
She Googled those vegetables together and then found a soup that had leeks was one of them. Leeks was one of them. And she came up with a soup that had only the ingredients she had in her her pantry.
Nice idea. I like that. I like that.
So anyway, she made that soup. You know, it was delicious. And as always, because my wife is a sweetie, she offered me my version of, she said, you can have the soup as it is, or if you because she's a vegan, if you want to have some meat on it, there's another part of it where you can add what's a ham hash on top of it.
Okay.
And she goes, I'll do that for you. But I just had it regular. It was really quite good.
Yeah. Like I've learned that too. Like I make my broth out of the vegetables that I broil up, and then the chickpea pasta and the turkey. Oh man. Mm.
Yeah. Anyway, let's start out with a little hockey here. We're coming out of break, and this is an odd feeling for me because we've had this extended holiday break, all because of COVID-19. It feels like the All-Star break. And, after the All-Star break, we tend to think of, okay, what's going to happen in the second half of the season? And, that's how I feel. Like, it's not correct. We've only played 36% of the season. But it feels like we're closing in on the halfway point. And I started to think, have my thoughts on the Stanley Cup favorites changed? And I think they have a little bit. And I wanted to talk a little bit about maybe who our top 3 picks are, for the Stanley Cup. And I'll just start out by just saying, originally I was a big Colorado Avalanche fan, as are the bettors of this country. They're still the favorite if you go to any of the betting sites. And I like to, I learned one thing, you're never too old to learn. And after I left USA Today and I started working for these betting sites, I realized these betting guys, because there's so many millions of dollars on the line, like they know what they're doing. Like if they say a team's a favorite, this isn't wishful thinking. I mean, these are guys that pay attention to this kind of stuff. So anyway, that's not why I took Colorado Avalanche. I liked them because I thought the Kemper acquisition was big. I thought he would replace Grubauer. Obviously they've got McKinnon, who's one of the most dangerous players in the world today. There are various times when I think he's every bit as good as Connor McDavid.
I agree.
And I love Connor McDavid, just in terms of that. And they have just so much going on. Makar, even this year is, projected on a projected pace to get 30 goals for defensemen. We haven't seen that, a decade and a half, those kind of things. So, they didn't start out very well. They had COVID, they had injuries. McKinnon's only played 17 games. He's only got 3 goals in 17 games. So, things haven't gone well for them. However, I still have them. I got them 3rd on my list. But number 1 on my list is a team that I really liked, but I couldn't do it because winning 3 in a row is hard to do. And to me, the team to beat right now is the Tampa Bay Lightning.
Yeah. I agree.
I just don't know how you can look at it any other way. Like, intellectually, we know how hard it is to win 3 in a row, and you think there's no way.
Right.
For everything to go right for a team for 3 consecutive years, I
hear you on that, Kev. I guess, and I think we're saying the same thing, but I really don't look at it as winning 3 in a row. Yeah. I look at it that they've really won the 2 in a row already. All they're worried about is winning this.
I mean, I know coaches, that's what the way they look at it. And I know that that's true. Like they're not tied together.
Right.
It's all one and all the individually. Although they'll constantly are going to hear that, okay, they're trying to win the third in a row. And I do think, and I've learned over time, I used to think, well, they're pros, they can handle that. But I've watched enough and talked to enough people to know that it does weigh on you, that even though the Toronto Maple Leafs, they weren't any part of all the failures that this team has had. It does weigh on you.
I'm going to take you to task on that. I don't agree. I think so. The reason Tampa has won 2 in a row is that they have learned how to win, and winning takes win that shift, win that period, win that game. Don't worry about winning the series. Don't worry about winning 4 series. That's what you have to do to win. They've learned how to do that. So they're not looking back and worrying about the fact that they've already won the 2 cups. They're just saying, okay, we just need to do what we need to do to win this period, this game, this series, and so on. So I don't think it really does weigh on them.
Yeah, I think you're totally wrong. Like that, you have the common belief that it's all individual and it shouldn't matter, but I think it does. Like I never used to believe that, but I've talked to enough people. Like even the Maple Leaf players have said, after a while, when everybody brings it up all the time, that even though you weren't involved with that,
maybe that's why they're not winning. They shouldn't be having that attitude.
Well, they shouldn't. Well, I mean, and you have the traditional outlook, and I think it's a healthy one, because I used to believe that too. Oh, come on, what happened last year happened last year. But I do think that and it's sort of been proven over time that it does tend to get in the way. Now, I think some guys can push it aside, but I do think for some people that does play into mind. So anyway, saying all that, I think Tampa Bay, just for the reasons that you articulated, I think they're the favorite. I think they know too much about winning.
Yes,
I think these guys are a confident group. I think it doesn't matter who they lose. They lost Kucherov. They lost Brayden Point this year. They lost all those guys in the summer. Look where they are right now, top of the NHL standings. No matter what has happened to them.
In some ways, losing those players gives other young players an opportunity to step up and now play a bigger role. So it's not like you're losing that role.
I agree. I mean, it's given them, they have found other role players, in order to do that. I mean, I don't go as far as you do. I don't think that losing Victor Hedman, was a big benefit to their team, but which was quite a showstopper when you uttered those words.
They've won 2 in a row.
I retell that story often, by the way, in the spirit of your Thursday show where, I'd say, Tom Laidlaw once said, it was a good thing they lost Victor.
Yeah. As you picked up for me to exaggerate. You're now exaggerating things like I used to, and I don't.
Well, you did say that.
Well, on a short-term basis,
there was context. There was context.
Yeah,
I certainly there was context there.
That's fine. So you got Tampa as the favorite to win the cup.
Yeah, I'm so impressed by them, and I took a deep dive into their numbers, and I just like where they're at as a team. I think they, I think they're, when they had that unbelievable offense, like their offense is still good, but it isn't unbelievable. They were unbelievable for a while.
Right. Well, and as Susan points out here, Stamkos is back to being Stamkos again now too. So
that's
an addition.
For sure.
Last year, right?
Yeah, and I think that because they know so much about winning, they can adjust their game. Like they don't have the unbelievable offense. They still have a very good offense, but it's not unbelievable. And so they figure out, what they need to be successful, and they still have Vasilevsky and Hedman, and that covers up a lot of mistakes.
No kidding.
So anyway, I've got that one. And my number 2 team involves, of course, your former defensive partner, Don Waddell. I think the Carolina Hurricanes, I'm starting to look at Freddie Anderson, and this is where Toronto fans jump in and say, wait till the playoffs, because that's the way they view Freddie Anderson. Wait till the playoffs. But, he seems to me like a missing piece for them. Like he's given them great goaltending. It's worked out for Toronto as well. Jack Campbell's been fantastic in Toronto. But they've got that, and they already had an exceptional coach in Rod Brindamore. Their defense, I'll say, is as good as anyone's. I just think they're a top-rated defense, and I know Susan's going to say the Rangers are better, and maybe they are. But I think they're equal to the top defenses in the game today. And plus they're hard to play against, that defense.
And that's a pretty good statement too, because remember they lost Dougie Hamilton, who was a pretty good defense, and they replaced him with Tony DeAngelo, and that's a question mark. But if he plays, if he keeps himself in line, then that's maybe a better player offensively, right? So.
Yeah, I watched a couple of games, the Carolina, and the teams were trying to get to the net. They didn't get anywhere near the net.
Yeah.
Jacob Slaffin just kept them away from the net. Brady Shea played.
He's good.
Well, yeah, there was.
They're good.
They got the offense as well. So those are my three teams.
So, but you get Tampa, Carolina, and who's the third?
The Colorado Avalanche.
Oh, you're going to Colorado. Okay, interesting.
Yeah, but they've won, I think, 5 out of their last 6. The reason I have them up there is their offense. 4.3 goals per game. They're the closest team is like 0.6 off. Like they got a half a goal advantage in every game they play,
right?
Because they're scoring so much.
Well, obviously, the one team I'm going to have to figure out who I'm going to take out of there, but the other team, and not just because I do so much and played with the Rangers, but I would not have said this at the start of the year, but I really think where they're at now, they are becoming that Stanley Cup contender. And the reason I feel confident about saying that for the end of the year, they'll be even better because they continue to get better and better. Shesterkin has missed some time, but he had the best goals against average or save percentage, I believe, at the time he was hurt. He has played like one of the top goaltenders, if not the top goaltender in the league. So I really think because of them, and again, these young players that they've got in there will only get better by the end of the year. Trouba has been fantastic for him. Fox is having another career like he did last year, another season like he did last year. I just, Kreider's having the best year he's had in a while. I just think they really are legitimately a Stanley Cup contender. My concern is going to be I'm with you on those other 3 teams. So it's like I do believe in Tampa. I do believe in Carolina. I think Colorado from the start of the year, they haven't had that great of a season yet, but I think they're that good. So my concern is who do I take out of that top 3? So I'm going to have to take out Colorado and put the Rangers in there. But again, that's begrudgingly. It's almost like a 3A and 3B. But I agree with you totally. I guess the other teams that you'd have to think about too is, what about like I'm not a fan of what Vegas has done all the time, but when I do look at that lineup and look at that team, man, if they can get the goaltending, if Leonard plays the way he has played in the past, they're going to be a tough team to beat too. So in Calgary, Calgary's had some struggles now with COVID, so they've dipped back a little bit, but when they were playing their hockey, that's a playoff hockey team too. They played playoff hockey, so.
I agree with him. I couldn't find room. I did my top 10. The Rangers certainly in my mind are, there's someone said to me just recently who I respect that he thought there were 8 teams that could win the cup.
Yep.
I think there might be 10. But 8 or 10 doesn't matter. They're in there. The Rangers are in there. The only reason I don't have them up to the top 3 is I've always believed that you got to sort of lose in the playoffs a little bit before you know how to win. And I don't think they've kind of been down that road yet where, you learn from, your failures. But if I was making my argument for taking out Colorado and just putting in the Rangers, I would just say the goaltending. I'm not sure I believe in Darcy Kemper. I did when he was in Arizona, but now that he's played with this team, he's been a little too up and down for me. Where Shesterkin is Mr. Consistency. And he's got that Vasilevsky vibe where you feel like, I may steal 2 or 3 games in a row just because I'm that good. So I could see having him in there. He's on my list. The Rangers are on my list of teams that can win it all. But, I just don't have them in my top 3. But I think what would really help the Rangers, like if they're in the second half of the season, and that would be right in my thinking, this would be right on the right page. If their younger players take off in the second half of the season, where I think that would give them maybe the boost that would put them.
And I tell you, Shesterkin in his first 30 games, like he has stolen some games from the Rangers. He has been that good. Like and Gallant, the coach, has mentioned that many times. And they're fine with that because they feel like they're getting better and better along the way. If he can steal those games, there's just I remember a game in Toronto early in the year I can't remember what the shots were against him, and he's just incredible. It isn't just him stopping the puck too. He's under control all the time. It doesn't look like it's like as much as Dominic Hasek was a great player, the one negative thing for a defenseman is it just looked like it was the end of the world every save, right? Because Dominic Hasek's flying out, where Shesterkin is always under control, controls his rebounds. He's just that goaltender that really gives the rest of the guys confidence. Hey, listen, we're okay. Maybe we've had a bad stretch here. Our goaltender has kept us in there. Now let's just go play hockey. So,
yeah. What did you think about yesterday, the forfeit with the U.S. at the World Juniors? So,
it's not they're not in the. This is just the preliminary round still, right? So it's really not.
Yeah, it is. But I mean, if they have more cases today, they could end up being out of the tournament. Because like it would be better. I know Bob McKenzie said this, and Bob knows his World Juniors. But it would be better for the U.S. if only the roommates of the two players tested positive today, because then they can make a case that it hasn't spread throughout the room, because it'll be a medical committee that will decide this.
Oh wow.
Yeah.
Well, you have to think if it's yesterday that they had things aren't going to be better today than after one day. Right?
Well, they're not going to be better. I mean, unless it's false positive.
Right.
Yeah. What if you end up having forfeited that for 2 false positives? Yeah. That's
yeah, I know. You were kind of bouncing around a little bit, but here's a great question. So I assume they're Carl's talking about the Rangers. Do they deal for Kane if they are close? Absolutely not, in my mind. I don't think. I mean, listen, I've said it before. Fantastic player, big, strong, physical guy, can score, is tough, can do it all. First of all, I don't think they need. Every team needs more of that. I should say they would need it, but my concern is that locker room. That's a young locker room. It's not like a veteran locker room. Like you have Patrice Bergeron and Zdeno Chara in there. So my answer is no to that. But
be interesting. Who could take them? Tampa Bay Lightning.
Yes.
I just can't even. He would have no impact on the Lightning locker room.
Yeah, I agree 100%. Imagine him. It's the same thing. They added Kucherov last year. They missed the whole season. They added him for the playoffs. They added Kucherov. So it's the same thing. You're adding Vander Kane. Well. Yeah,
I mean, I wouldn't rule anything out. I think Brisebois has done a terrific job. They really felt that like they lost when Steve Yzerman left, but Brisebois studied under Yzerman, and he's done a tremendous job of bringing in. And
how about a team like Washington? Would they go after Kane?
Yeah, maybe for sure. And Washington is a team that I considered to put in that top 3. They're really playing well. They got it all going on. I think what I've noticed is their defense is a lot more dependable than I thought it was. I've watched them. They can be pretty consistent in their effort, and now that they've got Kuznetsov playing like the Kuznetsov of old, Backstrom is back, and Ovechkin, of course, is playing as well as he ever has. 36 years old, he's the man.
Okay, I got a little conspiracy theory going on here for you.
Yeah.
We said on our last show that we felt that Gary Bettman kind of fell on the sword for the players, and saying that the decision to get out of the Olympics was because of the scheduling issue, which may be in part of the reason, but we both believe, I think, that it was more because the players are saying, we just don't want to go anymore with all these COVID concerns.
Well, I don't really know. I know some players didn't want to go for sure. Right. So. Yeah.
So now our little buddy Brad Marchand up in Boston comes out and makes some comments. Is very critical of the league. That he compared it to I can't remember what it was, but basically saying that he wasn't very happy with the decision that the league made.
And it's a lot of players. No, I shouldn't say a lot. Some players have come out.
Okay, but let's back up though. All along, we were at least under the impression that the owners were very honest with the players. They did not want to go to the Olympics.
Correct. They have been.
Right. That's prior to the pandemic or everything. But they said, listen, this is your decision. Part of the negotiation was the players want to go. So now all of a sudden, we get into the situation with the pandemic, and the league is the one that puts out the statement and says that we are not going anymore. So that's a totally counter to what had been going on prior to, right? Now it appears to be the league's decision, where it was really never the league's decision. That's the way we were told anyways, right?
Well, yeah, I mean, that is, although the league always had the right to pull the plug. But I think but they didn't really want to go to war with the players over this. Right. I mean, that was just
so all of a sudden, like Donald Fear isn't coming out and making any statements. He's saying the
No,
players are disappointed, but he's not being critical of the league. Right?
no.
I'm just not buying that the players are mad about this unless they're uninformed, or this is kind of a setup to make it look like they're mad about this.
Well, I do think that there were players that were happy about it and players that were unhappy about it.
Right.
I know a lot of the Europeans don't really want to go, and they're in their countries, in some of their countries, in Sweden in particular, they have had a different approach to COVID than the rest of the world has had.
They've just kind of let it go, and whatever happens, right?
Yeah, more or less. That seems to be the thing. So, I doubt whether the Swedes thought it was, Dylan Larkin said yesterday, even though he was one of the indicators that when I felt it was turning, when Dylan said, well, I don't know, it just seems like, maybe there's some sentiment that we won't be going. But he said he was going to go no matter what.
Oh.
He came out and said that, 2 days ago that he had made up his mind that regardless of the quarantining or anything else, he was going to go. He felt that strongly about it, but he didn't criticize the league. He didn't, he just said, this is the way it is. The decision was made. We're moving on.
To me, it's just not, and I don't necessarily think it's a bad thing. I just don't think we're hearing the whole story of why the decision was made.
Yeah.
And who ultimately made the decision. Like, I just don't believe it was Donald Fair just saying, like, or Gary Bettman just saying, okay, Donald Fair, I don't care what you say, we're just not going. I mean, that's just not.
Well, no, I don't think that is all, because I think they didn't want to go to war with the players over this.
And that's the point. But they went ahead, at least from what they're saying publicly, they went ahead and made the decision, they being the National Hockey League.
They did. And a lot of that has to do with the financial aspect of it. Like, there were the deadlines that had to be made, and ultimately it's the league that has to make these decisions regarding the financial penalties or non-penalties and all that kind of stuff, because they had signed a contract in order to send players.
Yeah.
So I'm sure there was some legal ramifications there that the league had to say, no, we're not sending our players. But yeah, now, there's still, and there's even more fallout now. Like, what we're hearing now is they don't want to reschedule the games in Canada without fans because of the lost revenue. That's a couple $1 million every time they don't have a game there with no fans or with limited fans. So now I've even heard some rumblings of, will they consider neutral site games? Because if you played a regular season Toronto game somewhere else, the people will get there who are Toronto fans.
We put Buffalo, the Toronto fans to get there.
Yeah. So, there's been all kinds of talk about what to do. And I think, this is the time for creative solutions, in my opinion.
Yeah. So. And I think they've done a pretty good job of that in the last 2 years to try to be creative.
Yeah, no, they have. And they have. So, I think that they want to make every effort. We are now at 80 games postponed that have to be made up.
Yeah.
That is a significant number. And we've played 36% of the season.
Yeah.
So, we've got a short, and the second half of the season was condensed because of the Olympics. So, Jeff Blashill had lost his game of the Red Wings coach with the Islanders. And he said, they asked him he said, I really wanted to play because I'm looking ahead and telling myself, are we going to be in that position where we're going to be playing every other day and I'm going to have no practice time? So my idea is that we can get some games in now, because I'm trying to save a practice here and there in the second half of the season. He's got a younger team. He's got some younger players, and he just, I know the veterans are going, yay, no practice. But,
I was just thinking the same thing exactly.
Yeah.
Like, I'm going, let's go, forget the practice, let's play the game.
Yeah. Yeah. So anyway, for whatever it's worth, but going back to that World Juniors, Bob McKenzie, when he was talking about this too, brought up something that, of course, none of the rest of us have ever given any thought to, but I found it interesting, is in order to have a legitimate World Junior Championship crowned, you have to have at least 8 teams finish the tournament.
Oh, well,
that's a rule. Wow. And he said that I guess in talking to people, they thought if you lost one in the final stage, like if you're in the quarterfinals and in 7, like, you might be able to get away with that. But if you lost 2,
Right.
they would just say no. There's no champion being
The
crowned.
U.S. team, how many kids did they have test positive then?
2.
Two. And
One
so is that the rule then? Is the medical team that says if you have 2 players, is there some number? Or did they
Well, no, the medical team only comes into play now as they retest everyone on the team today to see whether or not that they can go play Sweden in the next game. Whether or not they're putting Sweden at danger is first and foremost.
So if they canceled the game yesterday with 2 positive tests, you would assume if they were correct tests that they're going to be positive again today. That won't change.
Well, yeah, but that doesn't. It's the rest of the team. Like their roommates and the players that tested positive, we exclude those from the equation. So now what the medical committee would look at is, how about the rest of the guys on that U.S. team?
All right. So basically, you're assuming it's 4 guys, the 2 that tested positive plus.
Yeah, you're assuming that, but they may not be positive. But
right.
For the purposes of argument, since they live together, right, you're thinking, well, they're likely going to get it.
So as long as they're saying then it's the spreading that they're concerned about. If it's not, looks like it's not spreading to the rest of the team.
Yeah, then they'll let them play.
Okay.
I'm guessing that. That's up for them to decide. But there would be a medical committee that decides that. So, but that's a tough road. There's so much controversy with this too. I've been reading about, the IHF canceled a lot of tournaments, including the under 18 girls World Championship.
Yeah.
And the U.S. sort of protested that.
So they did forfeit the game, correct?
Yeah, they forfeited the game.
Okay.
Yes.
Yep.
So 1-0 loss for USA against Switzerland.
Yeah.
But the USA protested the IHF canceling the women's game because it just seems like so unfair that we're playing this World Junior Championship, and for men. And the only reason the difference is, of course, is that because it's being held in Canada, it's a moneymaker. I'm assuming it is. Yeah. Although I noticed there weren't as many people in the stands as we normally see.
But I think the TV revenue they get from it from TSN.
Right. So, doing that, and of course, there's no revenue in women's under 18. But U.S. still protested, and the IHF president said, well, if you can do better, come up with a better solution. That's what he said. So, and that's the problem with this COVID, as Steve Eisenman said before he stepped on a landmine with his own comments about maybe we shouldn't test asymptomatic players. There's no right answer here, and that's the problem. Right. We're trying to come up with an answer that doesn't exist.
Right, and I think if you look back at it too, you realize, okay, that's all right. Trying to criticize every move that's made, it's easy in hindsight. But let's take a look at all the college football games, the bowl games that are being canceled, or one team pulls out and they forfeit.
Well, we have become a society that really wants to. We just get excited to cast blame.
Yeah,
I really find it almost appalling how quickly people rise to anger over sporting events, and they get so worked up about it. Like everything, you don't drop a pass, you're a moron.
Yeah,
you didn't make a mistake. You're stupid.
Yeah.
Everything has to be. I'm really sort of bothered by how we've gotten to that. Even I read about kickers missing field goals at the college level and death threats, and
I know.
It's just so absurd that we never take into account how hard these decisions are. They just people, they just got it wrong. They don't know what they're doing. They're stupid.
And as much as sports has been such a big part of our lives and many other people's lives, it is still just sports. We're not curing cancer. Yeah. We're not solving.
No, I know. Yeah, no, I know. And especially with COVID, where the ultimate goal is to try to save lives, but people are all over it. And I understand that there are people whose lives have been totally altered. Their businesses have collapsed during all this. I'm cognizant of that, and I'm hopeful that people keep that in mind, that they've got to try to do that. We try to support our local businesses because we know how hard it is for them. So,
totally.
Yeah, it really has changed. I mean, I've told you before, my wife and I used to be a frequent restaurant goer as empty nesters, and now we don't, but we still try to get takeout when we can. And although what's really changed it is my wife becoming going from vegetarian to vegan. It's a lot harder for us to go to a restaurant now with that.
Yeah, totally. Well, I'm doing my part to keep Costco in business single-handedly here in the tri-state area. So
yeah, it's really the local business you need to support. I think Costco's going to do fine. So
yeah, good point. Yeah, they might be
we
got a little local farm that I go to here. They got all fresh vegetables and everything, so I get my ginger and all that there.
Yeah, we just we go to the farmers market locally here every well. And speaking of that, we can't even run and hide from there. One of the guys that we visited just got COVID. I don't know how he got it. It's an outdoor venue, but
I don't need to know details and exact numbers. Okay. So I know you've been very conscious of your diet lately of late. You've been working with a nutritionist and everything. How has that worked out during the holidays with all the holiday food?
It actually hasn't been hard. Again, it's a little easier when you live with a vegan. So she's helpful to me, and with regard to dealing with calories, and she knows she knows so much about food that it's
now real strict vegans. They don't even use leather products and all that kind of stuff, right? Is that
they do. I don't know. I didn't really know anything about that. She doesn't eat eggs or, and she takes it. There's no processed sugar whatsoever in her diet. And, we have, there's no egg products, no cheeses. So she's just basically eating plant-based food.
Very good. So, I admire it. That's a lot of discipline too.
Anyway, looks like we've gone on, and as usual, a little longer than we expected. We appreciate everyone tuning in. If you want to read me, I'm at hockeybuzz.com and DetroitHockeyNow.com, and we'll be back next week.
That's right. And if you want to listen to the radio version of the show, you can go to radio.co at 365 Sports. And again, I guess we'll see you guys next year, actually, too, right? Happy New Year, everybody.
Yeah.
All right, guys. Take care.
See you later. Yeah, thanks a lot. See you later.